Hello. Today I'm reading Running with the Horses. This book was published in 2009 in this big picture book format, and 10 years later, last year, Penguin republished it in a smaller version with a cloth cover, a really beautiful production that's a smaller book. So congratulations to Amy Thomas, the editor, and Tony Palmer, the designer, for doing such a lovely job. But I'll get on to reading the original version. The idea for this came about. I really wanted to do a picture book that was a great adventure, especially for a little girl to have. And when I started thinking about it, I loved the idea of the rescue of the horses from the Spanish riding school, the Lipizzanas, and how they'd been ridden to freedom during the Second World War. So that was really the inspiration for the book. Also, when you look at the illustrations, you can see they're done in a slightly different way. I was quite keen to use Photoshop to do the whole thing as a digital thing, but I could never learn Photoshop. I wasn't good enough at it. So the book was put off for a long time until someone pointed out that I could actually get a designer to do it with me. So I gave them all the layers, like the black and white drawings, the photographs, the snowflakes, the watercolours, and they layered them together in Photoshop, and that's how the book was made. It starts off with these beautiful end papers that are from very old engraving of performing horses doing all sorts of fancy things. And here's the title page. It's for my goddaughter Hilary. Hi Hilary. And it's Running with the Horses by Alison Lester. So you can see the narrative is carried by the black and white charcoal drawings that stand out against the background. When I was doing the book, I applied for and was lucky enough to be awarded a Writers' Project grant from the Australia Council. So I got to travel to Vienna and go to the Spanish riding school and be shown around and watch rehearsals and performances and take photographs that I could use in the book. So here goes the story. We won't finish it today because it's a pretty big book. A long time ago, a young girl called Nina lived in a palace that stood in the heart of a graceful old city. The palace was home to the Royal Academy of Dancing Horses, where Nina's father Victor was the stable master. Victor and his grooms fed and watered the famous stallions and polished their white coats to silver. Every day they prepared the troop for the academy riders, who guided the horses through their elegant routines. People came from all over the world to see them dancing. Nina and her father lived in a small apartment above the palace stables. At night in bed, Nina liked to think of the horses sleeping in their stalls just below. Sometimes her father told her stories about their life when she was a baby. Back then they travelled all over Europe with their own troop of horses. Nina's mother was the star of the show, dancing on the dappled greys like a sequined butterfly. Anna had died when Nina was 4 years old, leaving Victor heartbroken. All Nina could remember of her mother was feeling safe in her arms as they sat high on a horse. After Anna died, Victor's old friend Carl found him work at the Royal Academy, where he and his little girl could make a new life. Every day after school, Nina raced home to watch the stallions dancing as the palace orchestra played. The great riding hall glittered with light, and Nina dreamed one day that she would become an academy rider. By the time Nina was 10 years old, her life had changed. The academy had closed and now there were no horses dancing. A war was raging across the world, and every day the fighting came closer to Nina's city. Theatres and cafes shut down, the street lights were dimmed and shop fronts boarded up. One day Nina arrived at her school to find the gates locked and the grounds deserted. She waited in front of the silent buildings, but nobody came. Snowflakes fell from the autumn sky and settled in Nina's hair as she walked home along the quiet streets. The lane beside the palace was usually lined with horse-drawn cabs waiting for passengers. Now it was empty, except for Nina's favourite cab horse, Zelda. Why have they left you behind? Nina wondered as the old mare nuzzled her pocket for biscuits. When she arrived home, Nina found her father grooming the stallions. "My school is closed, Papa," she told him. "There's a big chain on the gate." The stables were suddenly quiet. "And the drivers and the cab horses have gone from the lane except for Zelda. She's been left all alone." Victor gathered Nina into his arms. It's time for us to leave as well, he said. I should have sent you to your mother's family when the main troop of stallions left. I have been waiting for the truck to return for these last 4 horses, but I don't think it's coming now. As he spoke, Victor wound Nina's plaits around his hands. We will have to take the stallions across the mountains to your grandparents' farm. You will ride with me on my horse. I have sent them a message to say we were coming. He lifted Nina onto her feet. Now go and pack. Make sure you have your warmest clothes. Nina ran upstairs. She felt worried and afraid, but her heart raced with excitement when she thought of riding over the mountains. Until now, she had only ever ridden ponies in the park. After she packed her clothes in her satchel, she laid her favourite things on the bed and tried to choose what to take. She picked up the little blue horse her mother had embroidered for her, wrapped it in a woolen shawl and pushed it deep among her clothes. There was no room for anything else in the bag. When Victor came upstairs and made supper that night, Nina had no appetite. Her throat was tight and it was an effort not to cry. My darling, you must be brave, Victor said. Carl will be with us and he knows the way. Nina gave her father a small smile. Carl was her favourite groom at the academy. He always let her help him brush the horses. Now you must go to bed. I have more work to do at the stables and we leave at dawn. It will be a long journey and you need to be rested and strong. Nina lay on her bed, but sleep was far away. The night was full of strange and frightening sounds, and she kept wondering if Zelda was still alone on the street. She put on her coat, hat and scarf and slipped like a shadow through the passageways of the palace. At an arched doorway, she jiggled the latch open and stepped outside. Zelda whinnied as Nina stepped into the lane and ran towards her. Nina put her arms around the old mare and leant into the warmth of her neck. "Oh, Zelda," she murmured, "if everyone is leaving the city, what will happen to you?" Nina ran her fingers through Zelda's silky mane, then stood on tiptoe, pulled herself up and wiggled over until she was sitting on the horse's back. Zelda nudged at Nina's foot in a friendly way but didn't move. Sitting so high made Nina feel strong and brave. Zelda was much taller than the ponies she was used to riding. Nina closed her eyes and imagined herself and Zelda in the great riding hall. She saw the cheering audience, the glittering chandeliers and the dazzling spotlights. She heard the swelling music of the orchestra carrying them along. Nina was riding like her mother, light as a summer butterfly. She could hear the soaring violins, the cellos, the drums. Nina snapped out of her dream. That sound was not drums at all. It was the crack of gunfire. She slid quickly to the ground as Zelda moved uneasily. "I'm sorry, Zelda," Nina whispered. "I have to go." She raced back through the palace, arriving home seconds before her father burst through the door. Just then, a huge explosion shook the building and their clock fell off the mantelpiece, smashing onto the floor. "We must leave now," said Victor. "We can't wait until morning. Fetch your bag and meet me in the stables." Nina ran into her room. She glanced at her small bed and wondered if she would ever sleep in it again, then grabbed her satchel and hurried out the door. At the foot of the stairs, Nina paused. She knew her father was waiting in the stables, but she could hear Zelda whinnying outside, so she turned and ran to the lane. Frantically, Nina untied Zelda, fumbling with the knot, then climbed onto her. The night echoed with shouts and gunfire as she rode back through the arched doorway. Inside the palace walls, Nina could hear her father calling. When she burst into the bright light of the stables, the stallions reared wild-eyed. "Get off that horse," Victor ordered. "You are riding with me." He reached for Nina, but she ducked away. Carl rode between them. "Leave her, Victor. I know this old horse, and she will be all right. We have to go now." I think I better stop at this page because I'm nearly up to my 10 minutes. So I hope you're enjoying it, and I hope to finish the book tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.